Hello everyone, today we are breaking down the Season 1 Episode 2 trailer for A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. But before that, remember to like the video, helps out the channel, and subscribe, and yada yada yada, let's get to it. The first thing we see is a flashback to when Sir Duncan was a child living in Flea Bottom, which is the slums of King's Landing. Dunk never knew his parents, he was an orphan living on the streets. He kind of had a gang he rolled with. They got into loads of trouble. He's speaking to one of his fellow street urchins right now, Wraith. I believe I'm saying that right. She says that this town is too small for them, and she never got nothing by waiting around. If you want a family, go out there and find a family. These are children who had a very rough upbringing, not having a family or anything. So of course they think about the greener pastures that await them if they leave Flea Bottom. But just because you leave a place doesn't necessarily mean your luck is going to turn around. We see a young Duncan looting a battlefield just on the outskirts of King's Landing. We see the Red Keep in the background. Obviously, there is going to be a lot of valuables left on corpses that Dunk can sell to different vendors in King's Landing. We see that the Lannisters were at this battle. We see their sigil here. I think this is the Battle of the Red Grass Field, which was the final battle of the Blackfyre Rebellion. The Blackfyres were Targaryen bastards who were legitimized by Aegon, their father and king, on his deathbed, which then created a whole civil war thing between Daemon Targaryen, his trueborn son, and Daemon Blackfyre, a bastard. That's the gist of it anyways. You will hear characters talk about it throughout the season. Red Dragon and the Black Dragon. Sir Arlen, the man who took Dunk in and made him his squire, fought at this battle. So maybe this is where the two meet on this battlefield. And instead of punishing Duncan for looting, he takes the boy into his service, and the rest is history. In the next shot, we see Sir Duncan talking about Sir Arlen and how he taught him sword and shield away from castles and servants. So Sir Duncan had a much different experience versus most of the knights here. Most of the knights are from great houses, who had a master of arms and were properly trained. Duncan didn't have any of that. Sir Arlen taught him when he had time, but that wasn't his main focus, his main goal. He still had to find work to get coin. Sir Arlen and Duncan are known as hedge knights, which is basically a nicer way to say sellswords. They aren't permanently employed. They wander Westeros looking for jobs or tourneys to fight in. Sir Arlen was around for a long time and wandered the countryside for a long time. He worked with many lords. Duncan's current problem is that no one knows of him or Sir Arlen. And since they don't know him, they're not going to let him join the list for the tourney, because they can't verify his knighthood. So Duncan and Egg are going to some of the lords who are at the tourney that Sir Arlen served for, but it seems no one can remember Sir Arlen. Hedge knights are kind of forgettable, which is bad news for Dunk. We see him asking Leo Tyrell if he remembers Sir Arlen, and he says he does not. By the way, it took me forever to figure out this was House Tyrell, a very different look to the Tyrells compared to Game of Thrones. In the next shot, we see that Dunk and Egg are hanging out in Lionel Baratheon's tent. In the last episode, Duncan and him kind of became friends, and more importantly, Dunk can eat for free here, so of course he's going to take advantage of that. He doesn't have a lot of coin, so it's a good way to save money. As we can see, Lionel is a bit of a partier. He likes to have a good time. So it seems this kind of runs in the family, because we know Robert Baratheon liked to party too. In the next shot, we see Duncan having his first interaction with Tansel. Tansel is the puppeteer who we saw in episode 1. Dunk was quite taken with her. And in his first interaction with her, we see him make it as awkward as possible. If you haven't noticed yet, Duncan is not great with the ladies. He gets a bit tongue-tied around them. We even see Egg giving him grief about his crush on Tansel, which Duncan does not appreciate. I love the dynamic between these two. In the next shot, we see Lionel Baratheon ask Duncan to help his team win in a tug of war. Duncan, being a giant of a human being, is a pretty good person to have on your squad. And they win easily, they celebrate. I really enjoy the simpleness of the show. Like Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon are just so grand, where this is much more grounded, and we get to see the perspective of someone who isn't from a great house, which is super interesting to see. At least I think so. In the next shot, we see Duncan and Egg talking. Egg wants to become Duncan's full-time squire. Dunk tells him if he loses the first joust, he won't really be a knight anymore. So how tourneys work is that each person has to put up their armor and their horse. So the winner of the joust gets the losers. If the loser wants their stuff back, they have to pay a ransom. Dunk does not have coin. So if he loses, he won't be able to afford to get any of it back, which would basically end his knighthood. Until he could afford to buy a new set of armor and whatnot. In the next shot, we are in Tansel's tent as she puts on a puppet show. One of her puppets is of a dragon. Aerion Targaryen, a prince, sees this and does not like her use of dragons in it, and decides he's going to punish her. He grabs her hand and breaks one of her fingers. Aerion is a very cruel person. When people speak of Targaryen madness, he is pretty high on that list. Egg notifies Duncan what Aerion is doing, and he comes to her rescue, and he lays hands on the prince, which of course is not good. Aerion is a prince, and Duncan is just some hedge knight. Duncan then gets arrested, I guess you would say, and brought to Baelor Targaryen for judgment. Baelor is the hand of the king and next in line for the throne. To the right of him is his younger brother and father to Aerion, Maekar Targaryen. To be honest, the other two I can't remember, but they're honestly not that important. If you want to name them, go ahead in the comments. Baelor tells Dunk that it is not wise to strike the grandson of the king, and there has to be a punishment. It is going to be a trial by combat, but different from what we have seen previously in Game of Thrones. It will be a trial of 7. Aerion sees that Dunk is a big man, and he insists on the trial of 7 because it increases his odds of winning. One-on-one he could maybe lose, Dunk is a lot bigger than him. But in a trial of 7, it's a 7 versus 7. Aerion has Kingsguard members, and every great knight would want to fight with a Targaryen to gain favor. Duncan is a hedge knight, and does not know a lot of knights. Also, a lot of people aren't willing to risk their lives for a hedge knight, so it puts Dunk at a disadvantage. In the next shot, we see Sir Duncan speaking to Raymond Fossaway about the trial of 7, and he is very concerned for Dunk, but he's going to try and help him gather a team. In the next shot, we see Lionel Baratheon in his full suit of armor, and he tells Duncan that I always knew you were trouble. And from previous trailers, we know Lionel will be fighting with Duncan in the trial of 7, which is a big win for him. Lionel's a great knight and a great fighter. In the next shot, we see Aerion in his full suit of armor. It looks awesome. Game of Thrones universe has the best armor in TV shows. Like, every other show sucks compared to what they do on HBO, and I really appreciate the work they do. Like, this is a work of art right here. In the last shot, we get a bit of a montage of the trial of 7, Aerion and Duncan going at it. Duncan is kind of getting his butt whooped here, but he gets up and is ready to charge at Aerion, and the two have a bit of a stare down. I can't wait for this. This whole thing looks amazing. I can't wait to see what they do in the fight, because from the trailers, the way they're filming it, it's like you're in the fight, which I think is super cool. It gives you Battle of the Bastards feel, but like on a smaller scale. I just can't wait to see this whole sequence. And that is it for the trailer. What did you think of it? Leave it down in the comments below. And if you want more A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms content, please subscribe and like the video. Check out the Twitter link in the description below, and as always, have an awesome day.